Yeah. In holler. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, buddy.
Oh, we are back.
Oh my God, it's been way too long. Way
Oh,
too long. That tastes good.
this is my first IPA since our last podcast. No, of course not. But hey, this is Greg and Race Days and IPAs, and I'm here with the amazing co-host Aaron.
Hey, everybody. We're live and in color, testing a new platform out.
So there are these things like cameras. I don't quite understand the technology, but I could see you, you could see me. I'm in Chappaqua, you're in New York. So newsflash to those fans of Race Days and IPAs, I'm actually in Chappaqua.
It
Now,
finally happened.
it well, almost. It's complicated, but I am here. I spend every night in Chappaqua. I cannot confirm or deny if I've moved 100% into the house yet, but Monica, the lovely Monica, is somewhere in this household, and Stormy though is right by my side, just like the good old days when we would
Um,
record with our dogs in the room.
I got Shay right next to me too. It's a beautiful thing. It's good to be
It
back,
really
Greg.
is.
It's
It
been
really
too
is. And
long.
I am drinking, by the way, Threes Brewing. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Oh, it's excellent. It's a really good one. What do you drink? Oh, that. Oh, I know what that one is. KCBC.
Oh, you can
Yeah,
tell from the artwork, the beautiful artwork of KCBC. A staple with race days and IPAs. The podcast. I'm drinking Superhero Sidekicks Hazy IPA. It
that
is
is an
a
excellent.
6.9%, and it is tasty. It's making
Excellent.
me feel like a superhero sidekick. I thought it was appropriate because I feel like you're the superhero who conquered London, dude.
That's right. We have so much to catch the audience up on. Um, but we have a limited amount of time here. We're experimenting, as our fans can see or not see. This is going to be available both on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, as well as if I can get a YouTube channel up and running, we'll publish the video there as well.
Oh
Um,
dear God, I didn't do my makeup, man. I didn't
oh,
know. I didn't get
well,
the ring light. I would have known. If I'd known that, I would have had a whole setup.
for next time, we'll do this next time. We will. You and I will. Um, we're testing this out.
Yeah. Well, I got
This is the first
the
time we're
baby
doing this.
monitor here. I'm ready.
You've got the baby monitor. I've got a new little camera here thing that is working out well so far. Um, yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that our engineer Jim had other clients. Can you believe that he has other clients than us?
I
So
was shocked. I was shocked. I thought he always made room for the boys.
I know, and he couldn't get in the studio. And our availability, especially this coming summer, is just all over the place. So we figured we'd try this new format for all of you out there, um, all of you, all of you fans of the pod. But no, I a lot has changed, a lot's happened. I'm up here since the last time we talked. I think it was back in January. What's been
It,
going on with you? I
oh
mean,
my
before we
God.
jump into London, let's hear about what's going on in Aaron's life.
What's going on in my life? Oh, geez. Well, Penelope is now almost 10 months old. We're still Upper East Side, kicking it. But it's been a nice adjustment. Running has gotten more routine. We're getting into a rhythm with who's waking up when, and Penelope is sleeping through the night. So it's been, up to me to get to bed early so I can get up early for those runs. But I'm still getting after it. And the Thursday night run crew has been getting after it too. We've been keeping up. I think
We have been.
the numbers. I did the numbers, and they've been 18 group runs that I've been to. How many weeks are we into? I think we're into like week 23 or week 20. This is week 24 of the year. So I've I've only missed 6 weeks out of the
Rough.
year. Um, so we've been very strong in that department. Um, and then trying to crack jokes at you, Greg. Trying to figure out what was your next move? Where were you going to be in May? Where were you going to be in April? Everybody was dying to know.
It's true. It's true. And, um, it boy, yeah, what a journey. I mean, it ended up working out well because this is my big update is that I have run and successfully completed the London Marathon.
Hell yeah!
You talk about these Thursday runs like they're nice and casual, but no, we were pretty intense there for a bit, and you joined me for a few of those long runs leading up to the whole marathon.
That's what
Um,
kind of like kick started me back up into a decent mileage, a weekly mileage was just running, just jumping out of bed and running with you on those long runs around Manhattan, 14, 15 mile runs out of nowhere. Just kind of going from like
Nowhere.
5 miles a week to, you know what? I'm just going to run 15 with you today.
Yeah, and we had I mean, reflecting on the lead up to the London Marathon, I was actually quite pleased with the way that we trained. And you joined me for some really strong long runs that I had, and I was really felt great going into the London Marathon that happened at the end of April. I'd taken things very, very quiet in May, but let's not get ahead of myself either. Yeah, I mean, look, you guys have marathons. It's going to be great observing your training. And I'm talking about many, many members of the club who have either
I know.
Berlin or have New York, or in some cases both, Chicago.
Chicago's in there
Um,
too. Yeah.
Chicago's in the mix too. So it's going to be nice sitting back and watching all of you train really hard. Because that's what you had to do. You supported me through this, and glad to see it on the other end now. I'm on the other end of it all.
Yeah, you got to nurse those toenails of yours and make sure
Oh,
those are.
the man who used to have toenails. I mean, I'm going to spare the audience that. I know this is the Technicolor like version
We need a picture.
of the podcast, but I'm not gonna take it that far at all. But look, yeah, let's get right into it. Look, the London Marathon. I have to tell you, what a race! Like from an execution and organization point of view, it was really top notch.
Yeah,
Um,
what stood out for you in terms of like because you've ran New York, how many times? 5 times, 4 or 5 times.
4 times for
Um,
New York.
you've ran Chicago, what and others. So what stood out this time? Like, was there anything special about the London?
Yeah, I mean, if you just talk about the organization of it, like they have a big old a conference facility that you go to for the bid pickup. That went very, very smooth. Not to say that New York doesn't, but I would say it's on par. I think the Javits Center is a little smaller than where they put us. There was tons of space to hang out. New Balance had put on quite a show, quite an expo. They're the corporate sponsors. I picked up some new kicks, some new shoes. The London Marathon version also got a nice windbreaker, which was really cool. The whole process went very, very smooth from bib pickup to t-shirts to the quality of the merch is incredible. And you can get in there, get in and out fairly quickly. Monica and I spent a lot of time there because we just wanted to check it all out, and we picked up a few items. So that was really good. The next day, so the way that the one thing that, I mean, looking back on it, it's not such a big deal, but at the time, I'm like, why? They give you your corral and your start time very late in the process, almost a week before. So, but when they do, they tell you exactly the time that you're expected to kick off. They tell you, they give you the train schedules for multiple ways to get there. Kind of a walking guide once you arrive on site to how to get most efficiently to the start. And it was a breeze. We took the National Rail Service train, above ground train. We were the first stop, or I was the first stop, so I had a seat. When it said it was leaving at 9:52 or whatever it may have been, it left exactly on time. By the second stop, we started picking up a lot of people, and it ended up being standing room only. But everything was very predictable. When you got to the other end, you arrive at a small town like in the Greenwich area, and then you have about a half a mile walk to the start. But you just follow the flow. The streets are closed. You're not dealing with traffic. And when you're there, you enter this massive park, just wide open space. There's security, of course, but it just is a breeze. And I
Did the
found
city
kind of
shut
an
down?
area to hang out, and that's what I did for the next hour. What's that?
Did the city shut down? Like how well did they close off everything? How did you feel like is it, New York is just this massive spectacle, especially getting to the marathon starting point, and like they have the buses, they have the ferry, they have the trains to get down to the ferry. NYPD is everywhere, road closures, and the bridge is shut down. How does that compare to the London marathon?
Yeah, I mean everything was shut. Uh, they ran a tight ship, but it does make you appreciate, well, maybe not appreciate how difficult New York City is. I mean, Staten Island is not easy to get to. And if you take the bus option, you're there, especially if you have a later start time. My start time was 11 a.m., which is going to factor into this update as we go along. So it was a very late start. Imagine 11 a.m. start in New York and you took the bus option. Oh,
Oh, you're there at 6,
you would be
and
there
then
you would be there
or
so
6:30.
early,
Yeah,
and it would be just, you'd wait there hours for the race to kick off. The other option is you take the ferry, and again, you got to give yourself a lot of time in my estimation. But here, I had a few train options. Yeah, I could have really cut it close, but I followed their guidance, and there was plenty of area, plenty of porta pods. Everything was set up well. It was it just makes you appreciate how difficult it is to get places in New York. So even though I had a late start time, I was able to sleep in, and it was it was an enjoyable morning, to be honest. Now, when you get to the race, which I'll get into, I have some issues with it. I mean, if you were to nitpick, um, it was a very warm day. So you know better than anyone else, we trained in really cold weather the whole winter, and this was the first race that I had run in some time where there was just the sun was beating down and there was heat. It was somewhere in Fahrenheit. I think it started at about 72 degrees,
no,
70 degrees.
that's
And of
awful.
course, having an 11 o'clock start didn't help matters. The sun was right above. And for the first 8 miles, 10 miles, the sun was just constant, right above you. I had a hat on, thank goodness, but I certainly felt the effects of the sun beating down on me like constantly,
Yeah, I mean
while I'm out there.
they do
And
they do a good job of strategically scheduling these races so that it's either early on in the year where it's cooler, or it's later in the year and it's also getting cooler. They don't plan for these freak days like I think a couple of years ago there was a 60-degree day for the New York Marathon in November, which totally threw people off. People were getting getting overheated and sweat. Like they weren't training in that, so they faltered. Like I think similarly here, like we were running in like 40 or 50-degree weather for those long runs, and then you jump up 20 degrees. It's crazy. Your body's not
yeah,
adjusted to it.
the only thing I had going for me was that there was not a lot of humidity. So it was the sun. And this will come back to kind of, this will save the day towards the end of this story. But yeah, afterwards, everyone I talked to about the race seemed to be of the same mindset that they lost 15 minutes off of their goal time. And I was really no different. Um, I think secretly, like I felt really, really good. And as I mentioned, I had a great training session that you were a part of. And I still to this day think that if I had been able to run my race, a PR wouldn't have been that far out of sight, and which is like 4:30. But plan B for me, which is more realistic, was 4:45. And then C and D were just about enjoying oneself, right? Under 5 hours, and then just enjoy it. But we kicked off uh exactly on time. So they have, corrals. Like they end up, you know, putting you all into a corral when your time has come, and then you just follow the leader. They take you to the start, and there's no waiting around. Like from that walk, from the controlled walk from the starting area to the actual start line, you went from walking to run, which was great. There was no waiting around. It was just when they started moving you to the start line, that was the equivalent of just like they were starting the
And
race.
New York City is the only other that I can relate to because Disney, it's so far away. It's so far in my mind. 2018, I can't even remember that. But New York City, I think they do the same. Like, I can't remember waiting and standing around once we get to the bridge. And you can speak to Chicago too. Like the majors, did they do the same thing? Get
It
you?
wasn't as well organized as Chicago, even.
That's
It was,
crazy.
in a way, I was expecting there to be a pause for an indefinite period of time, but they said, I think officially my start time was 11:08. I kicked off at 11:09. Like it was ridiculous how accurate all the timing was on race day. So yeah, I mean, I would say that the first few miles were controlled, but I started feeling the heat. I had been, I was running I'm looking at the data right now, um, 10:20 pace, which was maybe a little, I was going to push it to like 10:15, but 10:20 was great. I felt good, but I started my heart rate started to elevate a bit early on. Now, the whole course is mostly downhill, which is a help, but the most significant downhill happens in the first 3 miles, the 4 miles into the race, and then it's kind of flat with some. The next big uphill is Tower Bridge. But for those first 3-4 miles, I'm consistently at the 7 or the 10:20. I'm 10:20, 10:19, 10:13, 10:20. So I feel controlled
And
at
you're
that point.
downhill, you're feeling yourself a little bit. You're like, this is great. Fresh off of training. The only thing that's creeping the back of your mind has to be the weather at this point.
Yes. And I was tiring quickly. So I wasn't tiring to the point of like where I felt like I knew that I was going to falter a bit, right? I knew that I wasn't going to have the energy. I was going to hit a wall, right? The ideas of me running like we did, or you ran. Did you run for part of it or all of it? The 20 miler that we did, or I did. I think I ran. I think you joined me for a bit, and then I finished. But I did a solid 20 miles without stopping and had a 10-15 pace at the end of it. So I was really pleased 10-20 pace with it. I realized within the first 5-6 miles that wasn't going to be the case because I'm sweating through my shirt um,
Already.
already, and the sun is still constant there.
And
Um,
how much of that was from like you saying that you knew that right from the almost the get go that it was going to be a little bit of a struggle. Um, Now, is that just solely from the weather, or is it because you traveled across the pond, you traveled a little bit, you're not staying in your house, you're eating different food, like all that had to have come into play too.
Surprisingly, I don't think it did as much. Like it may have, but um, I had a strategy for jet lag. You basically, I arrived Friday, and
All you
you,
Berlin
you,
runners, now take note.
yeah, Berlin runners. So, well, I mean, I've done this travel a bit, and I've done this travel a bit, and generally my rule of thumb is that I go and I just stay awake the whole day. So I land, I barely get any sleep on the flight, but I stay awake the whole day. Napping is your worst enemy because you need a solid first night of sleep. And I got exactly that. I was in bed by like 9. I was up a little bit, like for a couple hours over the night, over the course of the evening. But then I slept till 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. We had nothing planned on Saturday. I had already done the expo. So for me, that was just about sleeping. And I had an amazing sleep. Um, and then that evening, I met up with a couple friends. I had a big pasta for lunch, and kept it pretty light for dinner. Monica, Kate, and Backer took me to dinner that Saturday evening, and I kept it fairly light, and then got a good sleep because my start time wasn't until 11. I didn't have to leave the hotel until 8, which is great. And just with the way that the trains and everything worked, like it was confidence building because I was sitting on the National Rail Trail train, and I knew that it was going to go and depart exactly on time. The reliability is just second to none.
I can't
Um,
I can't believe that because all I know from running Disney and to New York's is being up at like 4 a.m.
isn't
and
it
then
crazy?
just you get like
Like,
you have to go to bed at like 9, 8 or 9 o'clock somehow, and you're anxious for the race, so you can't get to bed until like 10 or 11, and then you're up at 4. That comes in the blink of an eye.
no, exactly. And sure, there was that anxiety. And I didn't sleep all the way to 8 o'clock. Like I was up at 6 and started my routine. It was comfortable. I didn't feel like I had to rush at all. So again, I went up to that start line feeling as good as can be. And I started feeling the heat, and that played into my thinking at least by mile 4 or 5. And you could see it in the numbers. I mean, by mile 6, I'm starting to my heart rate is approaching 150. I'm generally my warning zone is high 160s, low 170s. So to be at 150 or just above, just at 150, was alarming, especially by mile 9. I'm running a 10:35 pace with a 155 heart rate. So I'm clearly heating up and unable to cool down.
Exerting
Uh,
yourself. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Now you and so many, actually very few others were so insistent on a nutrition, training. And I went to the well early with these things, right? I That's what you read, you drink,
Hmm.
you get the fluids in you, you take the nutrition, and that's what I did. I think I had 7 or 6 rather for the actual race. I took one of the gels before the race, and I was probably by mile 10. I was at least 3 in, I think, at that point, because I knew that I had to. I just wanted to get to mile 16, basically. That to me was where I wanted to remain strong through a lot of that. So I was glad that I trained with all of that, with the hydration pack
Yeah,
and
yeah. How'd that
everything else.
work out? I didn't even ask. Oh my God. This is
Oh,
your
it
first
it
time,
was
right?
great. Like I mean, it was spectacular. If I'm going to keep that thing around. Like it's not, I didn't feel it on my back. So for those of you who don't maybe didn't keep up with this, um, I bought a hydration belt. So there's a 1 liter bladder that is stuffed into a pocket, and you wear it as a belt. And there's a hose that you then will suck the fluids out of. Now I knew that 1 liter wasn't going to get me through the whole thing, and I had my scratch in that. And what was also great about the race was that they had water bottles, actual water bottles that you could grab at the aid station, and I was holding them and kept one in my hand as long as I could.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So I stayed hydrated, but my body was still, hot. Now, the race from a holy fuck, this is amazing, really starts to happen around mile 12. And just to set the stage, London, most people actually confuse London Bridge and Tower Bridge, right? Tower Bridge is actually the bridge that's the ornate bridge, that is quintessential London, right?
Hmm.
And Tower Bridge is a part of this course by mile 12. And the way to get there, though, is that you're running the Thames River from Greenwich, basically, and eventually you make a right-hand turn and you see Tower Bridge in the distance, and you've got maybe a half to a three-quarters of a mile to run just to get to it. So the anticipation as you turn that corner,
That's
you
cool.
see the bridge. Everyone's like pulling out their cameras. I was guilty. In fact, if you look up my photos, you'll see that I'm carrying my camera.
We
I'm
definitely
completely
posted it.
foresting out.
We definitely posted the race photos of you, the live action videos of you running over it and getting your selfies on
No,
the
yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
How would
That
you
was
compare
that
it
was
to like seeing the Queensboro looming in the distance?
so again by mile 12. I don't like I'm not dead, right? Um, I'm definitely getting up there. By mile 12, I'm at 160 beats per minute, 10:30 pace. Uh, so I still had something in the tank. I just was more concerned about the later miles. And it's not like a Queensboro Bridge. It's just not as ridiculous
No, there's
as the
no
Queensboro Bridge.
elevation.
And I wouldn't call the Queensboro Bridge very scenic. You get in that middle deck, and you hear nothing but footsteps, an occasional person yelling and their voice echoing. This is very different. This is where it all comes together. And I knew that Monica and my support crew were on the other side, so I intentionally stayed to one side and saw them after coming off the bridge, which was great.
It's not very
So
long either, right? It's like a half mile, if that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just as you turn, you see it, and that's where it just hits you. It's like, holy shit, I'm running a London Marathon. Like this is really happening.
But I
And
think
you're 12 miles in.
I'm going to play devil's advocate because that's Rebecca, my lovely wife, says that I'm the best at doing that. I think we're accustomed to seeing the Queensboro Bridge every day in our day to day like runs, or we do a loop and we run over it. Seeing that for the first time, if you're not a New Yorker, if you're you've never ran it before, that could be an eye opening experience.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it could be. It wasn't for me, but it could be. I have a little bit of experience. I mean, you can't. There's no other time of year where you run Tower Bridge, but you can run a little like passageway, a little sidewalk when you do. But usually you have to go up steps in order to access that part of the bridge. Um, I'll get to that in a bit, but I think that's probably where most people run the fastest. Like they'll say, not to say that there isn't that enthusiasm at the very start of the race, and people probably running faster than they should. But there's something about New York where I think going over the Verrazano Bridge is such a you don't realize how steep it is, and
Yeah,
and the enthusiasm of the race just takes over, and it can be quite daunting, and you lose a lot of precious minutes there, later on in the race. I
guilty
think
twice. Yeah,
twice, right?
yeah.
Tower Bridge can be like that. People probably picking up the pace a little bit. But again, I started at 11 o'clock. Not to generalize people who start later in the day, because I was one of them. But we were all taking out our camera phones and taking pictures, and it was more of a walk in the park than a lot of people I think were sprinting. Like I think everyone was just enjoying that moment, and there's some great pictures to show for it too. That since this is a very multimedia version of the podcast, I will figure out a way of posting them. Maybe I will be voicing over right now some of those pictures. But it was really amazing. People do not get the chance to do that. But the reality then sets in afterwards, right? I am now 12 and a half miles into a marathon, and the greatest moment of the race has
Is
just
over.
passed me by, and I still have a half marathon plus to get through.
14 miles. Oh boy.
And when the sun doesn't let up, the sun is still out there. And I'm just looking at my numbers. By the half marathon mark, I'm running a 10:34 pace, and my heart rate is as high as it's ever going to get, 164. Um, I started to by mile 14. Um, the pacing went down. I was then at 10:56, mile 15, 11:02, and then by mile 16. So mile 16, if you break down the race, the first third is Greenwich, the second third is really Tower Bridge and getting to Canary Wharf, and then the last third is Canary Wharf, and then the finish. I was entering the last third of the race at that point. Well, I mean, I still had 10 miles to go, but there is a part as you go into Canary Wharf that is all a tunnel. You run through a tunnel, and I took that opportunity to just stop and walk.
So I was going to
Um,
ask what kind of with the sun being down on you, what kind of cloud, like what kind of cover did you have, if any? Because I'm not
oh, cloud
as
cover? Nothing by that point.
because you said you're going
Clouds were
into a tunnel. That's a little bit of cover from the
Yeah,
sun.
the tunnel was perfect. And again, I go back to the fact that there was very little humidity, relatively speaking. I mean, we run in some really humid conditions here in New York. So compared to New York standards, this was nothing, dry as can be. So you go into that tunnel, and it actually feels cool. And I just soaked it up. I just went nuts, and I had water, and I really just took my time because my goal was keep an eye on that exit because you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was going to walk the whole way and then begin to do kind of a walk run, walk run. That to me was going to define whether or not the race is over for me, or maybe somehow I pull myself together. I get
That
on
was
the other end
mile
of it.
what, 16?
This is mile 16.
Yeah. Well, shoot.
So mile 16, I'm at 13:33 because you factor in some walking. Mile 17 and 18, I'm at like 13 minutes on average. I'm using all my fluids, and everything now is gone just about. I have one more goo and gel pack left. Um, and at this point, I wasn't really sure if I had any more of the electrolytes, so I actually took my belt off. And as I'm rummaging through the belt, this is about at mile 19, I remember that I had 5 salt packets in there. And I still had a water bottle with me with a little bit of water. I ended up dumping 2 salt packets into the bottle, shook it up, drank it. It tasted like salt water, but it actually was somewhat quenching. It was quenching my thirst. I picked up maybe a quarter mile later a fresh bottle of water, pumped the last 3 in there, drank that all, and I started feeling better about life at that point. Um, there had been some cloud cover now coming in. I was dry. Like I literally went from saturated to dry, and I was about to enter to me the most familiar running of the entire race. So long story short, I used to live in London, as you know, and for 4 years or 3 years really, I would run the embankment, which is basically, from Tower Bridge to Westminster, I would do that loop every weekend, and then some. In fact, London was the first place. This race is very special to me because many years ago, this is where I went from get off the couch to actually running, and it became life altering to me. So it was really special and important for me to go back and run this race because back in those days, I swore that I would never do a marathon, and here we are, right?
Yeah,
And
Greg,
it's
this
a
is, I don't know if you
huge
know
part of my
this.
life.
This has been your white whale because I think either episode one or episode two, you were mentioning I want to at some point run the London Marathon. That's like that'll be the quintessential race. So you've been eyeing this for quite some time.
And you know what? I think it all hit. It all kind of started settling in, hitting me. And maybe it was the electrolytes, maybe it was the cooler weather or whatever, but I started picking up the pace. And I ran a solid 6 miles from there, like from mile 20 to mile 26. I averaged around an 11:30, which doesn't sound, by my standards great, but when you're going from like death to an 11:30, um, in fact, at one point I remember just stopping, and I wasn't quite sure why I was stopping because I was strong enough to just keep going. Now I enjoyed myself too because at that point, I'm very familiar territory, running the embankment, and I saw some friends finally. Like I kind of looked up my buddy Steven, who lives in Europe, was there, and evidently, he was following me. He was there for me at three other checkpoints that I
You didn't see him?
didn't see him.
Oh, shout out Steven. Real
Yeah,
MVP right
yeah.
there.
Shout out to him. He was in the tube and just following me, as best he could, and I finally noticed him by mile like 23 or
What
22. So I stopped. I
he
turned
just
back
tackled
around.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave him a high five and we said hello for a bit. I saw my friend Hung and Luis did the same thing, ran by, and then finally caught them yelling my name, and I turned back around. Uh, I did maybe walked once. The rest was just, I felt solid. And I really pulled myself together. Now, the other thing that I should probably mention in this is that by mile 19, I mean, it seemed like everything was lost. My watch even gave up. My Apple Watch basically said low power, you know, blah 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 blah.
I
Right? The
cannot
screen, the
believe that.
screen didn't, the screen didn't light up. Right? So I was regrouping, and I decided to take out my phone, and because which that had a lot of power, and just started recording Strava on that. So at this point, I'm getting to these final miles. I have no clue what time I'm running at this point. I'm just going purely by feel, and I certainly don't know, like from a race perspective, what timing, what time I was. Then the end comes, I've it's just absolutely amazing. Again, it's another one of these things where you are running to Big Ben, the Parliament. So as you go down Westminster, in fact, shout out to the race team when we were there in January, February. We ran some of that together. It was Eric.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Amber,
yeah.
yeah, Amber, Eric, and you ran
Yep,
a
Eric,
little bit
Amber, and me
of the
ran
marathon.
ran there. We ran to Westminster, and if you've ever done it, you will see in the distance the Big Ben. So again, another major mile marker. Um, and you turn the corner, and that's Parliament Square and the whole bit, and you know that you're within less than a mile from Buckingham Palace and the Mall, where the finish line is. And I started picking it up, and the data says that I ran like that in a little bit over 10 minutes. I could have run faster. Got some great pictures. Crossed the finish line. I still had no idea what time it was. And eventually I pull out my phone after I get my medal, which is superb. Um,
Oh yeah, show it for everybody.
yes. There
Look
we
at that
go.
beauty. Look at that beauty. 4.5.
Look at that, huh? Oops. Camera's adjusting. Um, Beautiful meadow. And it wasn't until then that I actually had a minute to look at the unofficial results, and I finished at 4:59:31. So, um,
Right in the
I,
fun zone.
exactly. I accomplished not A, not B, but I accomplished C and D goals, because I broke under 5 hours. It's consistent with everything else I heard. Everybody was 15 minutes later than their normal start time. And look, these middle miles, I know it's funny. Like I've run a bunch of marathons now. My body has done the same thing each and every time. I've had to stop. But this is the first time that I stopped and I composed myself and I was able to pull it all together and finish strong. Um, this has happened to me in New York, and these paces just got longer and longer and longer because you feel defeated, like, and that's it. But this, I was just enjoying myself and just plugging away, and yeah, 15 minutes beyond what my goal time was, but I was still less than 5 hours, and finished it up and did the marathon, and it was spectacular. And the other good thing, so that's the race. The other great thing is leaving the runner zone is very, very easy. Like I literally ran from I continued to walk. I didn't have a bag, and you just simply walk out, and within a I don't know, Monica had reserved a place about a mile away, but it was really simple from where the finish is.
Yeah,
And there's
you walk
no
about a mile to get out of the finishing area for New York City. So
Oh, in New York, and it's crazy. And there's pinch points. There's no pinch points here. Like if you've ever been to London, like the Mall, which is the big old parks. I think St. James's Park is around there, and it's a big old park. Like like they didn't they didn't like funnel you through some sort of narrow exit. Like there you go. You just go, and
yeah,
and we did. And yeah, there's some security there, and making sure everything's coordinated, but they didn't try to they didn't make it complicated for you. Like it was really easy to get out the door, and you had tons of room to just spread around, right? And then there was a meal waiting for me when I arrived, and we had
the
celebratory drinks the
best.
whole night. So that was London,
Full
one of the most
IPAs.
amazing races ever. And if people didn't get into it, there were 56,000 that finished it, which was
Oh,
a new record for a marathon. Um, and very hard to get into, but man, if you can get into it, this is certainly one of those races that you do want to run.
all right. Some questions. If you could change one thing about your preparation for the marathon, what would it be?
Uh, it's weird, I think if I were to break it down, the taper week or two, I really didn't have any structure to it. I'm not suggesting that it was make or break, but the taper weeks, it felt like such a void. I felt like I was cheating on myself because like I had just run 21 miles or something like that. There were some people questioning, you run a 20 mile and then you do a 22, but I ended up cutting it to 121. Why so many miles? But then you run into a period of almost tapering for 3 weeks that you almost feel like you're cheating on yourself. And I don't know, like I'm not that elite. I'm not elite. Like maybe take it a little bit differently, the strategy. I don't know. Like I felt like but I can't really point to that. I really felt prepared on race day. For the pace that I wanted. I think excuse me, I had realistic expectations. So there's not a lot. I will say this thing, and we joke around about this house. I couldn't have trained the way that I did if I was here. Like
Interesting.
being in the city was the greatest thing that could have that stability, even though it was
You would have found a
unstable.
way.
I mean, the quality of runs wouldn't have been as great. Like to do those long runs with you, I would have had to stay over somewhere or take a hotel or drive in that day, and it's just different preparation, different things, and I think that would have bothered me a bit. So I was really lucky and fortunate that I was able to train right there on the East River the whole time.
That is silver lining. You can half glass full type of mentality right there. Uh, Now, speaking of training, you moved your training to, or you tried something different this time around. You went for a timed run strategy versus a mileage strategy for a lot of your runs. Do you think that helped? Do you think that what's your overall feeling on that? Is that something that I
Yeah.
should try?
I would say that in the early days, it seemed to help a lot because it forced me to run easier, not push myself too hard in those early days because I was running to a particular time, not a distance. But towards the end, you have to focus on distance. Like a long run based on just feel and time, I don't think is as a strategy all that great. So eventually you have to just log those miles. But I think as an early indicator, early tool, I think that helps.
Because I was looking at,
Especially if you're someone who maybe trains a little harder than you should. Like I shouldn't like past marathons. I'm trying to get a 10-mile runs in 9:30, or something like that. And I needed to be scaling that back a bit. And I think that that's what time-based running really forced me to do.
yeah, okay, yeah, because I'm looking at just for shits and giggles, I looked at Strava, and they offer a if you're a premium member, they offer a marathon plan. They'll generate it for you, based off of your times and stuff. I was playing around with it last night, and yeah, they do a timing of like 2.5 to 3 hours, or 3 hours to 3.5 hours, instead of doing the 19 miles or 21 miles. And I found that pretty interesting. I don't know. I feel like you could run 20 miles in 3.5 hours. It seems pretty,
Yeah.
it seems
eh,
comparable.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like the accomplishment is running 3.5 hours, not necessarily to a distance, but inevitably like distance plays a role in it. That's why I think these earlier runs, the time-based approach, what's great too is that we've run long enough where we can get those plans and then modify them. I did feel like I was able to modify and pivot Audible a bit when I needed to. If anything, I mean, going back to your other question, maybe I could have done more track work.
Hmm.
But
We did
you
not
know,
do any of that.
didn't do anything of that, right? Anything of that sort. So I think I was always running the same time. I mean, we did push ourselves on Thursdays, but I think I could have probably balanced it a little bit. I don't know if it would have made any difference on race day, to be honest with you. But I think if there was one element of my training that I missed, that was probably it.
You probably can add running in like a garbage bag. You gotta, you gotta like increase the heat somehow if you're gonna run in a 70-degree London marathon next time.
Well, you kind of expect with London rain and cold, right?
Exactly.
That time of year, and it was neither. So I generally, knock on wood, run better in the rain and certainly on the cooler weather because what I did learn a lot through training, and I know, I got some shit for this, is running to the heart rate. I mean, don't let it control you, but it's an indication of whether or not you're heating up, and you need to counter that with electrolytes or counter that with any sort of nutrition and especially the electrolytes, I suppose. And just recognizing those warning signs before you hurt yourself, right? Or you can't recover the way that I did. I think paying more attention to that gave me a bit more energy towards the end to come back. It's a whole different race. If I had finished in 4:59:31 and ran 22 miles well, and then suffered those last four, I don't think I'd be feeling as good about this race as if the way that I did this one, because it was the recovery that really got me pumped. And if I had faltered in the last 6 miles as opposed to pick up the pace in the last 6 miles, um, uh, I think I probably would be looking back on things like, well, why didn't I push faster or harder? Why didn't I have more long runs? Why didn't I do this and that? But I come out of this race feeling a lot more positive, I think, than the alternative. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. If you could give, I guess this is my last question for you. If you can give one piece of advice for a runner who's traveling to a race, what would it be?
Uh, do not fall into the trap of sightseeing. Save that for later, right? You may have to come back. You may have to come back. Like to my friends in running Berlin,
Right.
for instance, there's a lot to see in Berlin. It's beautiful, but don't do it before the race.
That's the only time I may have.
I know, but that's that. I'm really glad that Monica and I, we have our things that we can do in London solo together. We spent a little bit of time together, but for the most part, she was off, doing her own thing, and I was just doing my own thing, which was just resting. So I think for anyone who's going to a destination run, you're kind of you're excited, new city. If you can, try to avoid the sightseeing until
Uh,
race day is over.
um, oh
I
yeah.
know it's
So,
going to be
so I
hard,
guess
but
I guess is there a time frame that you would recommend to get to the destination? Was 2 days enough?
2 days for me was. If you're concerned about jet lag and such, I would get there a day earlier. Like if I left on Thursday night, I arrived Friday. Um, you don't have to go crazy and go there on a Monday, but I think a Wednesday would probably be the latest that I would travel for a Sunday race where you're doing a red eye overnight. Um, you do want to get. I didn't get any real running in while I was there. You probably want to do a shakeout, which I didn't do. So, and you don't want to do a shakeout when you're jet lagged. So, basically you arrive there one day, do whatever you need to do to just rebalance. The next day, do a shakeout run, and then just be very conservative the day after or the day before the race, and shut down in my mind. And then you've got race day.
A good thing my flight is Wednesday night, so we will get there 1 day extra and be able to get acclimated. Maybe get a
Great.
shakeout on Thursday night.
Well, this is fantastic. So that's it for today. We're gonna call it quits, and we'll see what we get out on the back end of this. It may take me a couple days to edit this, um, but for race days and IPAs, I'm Greg,
I'm Aaron. Hey, cheers.
and cheers to everyone. Till the next one.